Nutcracker podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Global Nutcracker. Today with me, I have Daniel Victorino from Galaxies. Thank you, Daniel, for being here.
Thank you for having
I
me.
think you have an amazing story that my audience wants to hear. So, how are you today? All good?
Good.
Good?
A little bit tired, last day of event, but excited.
Of course. But let's use the opportunity for you to relax and tell me more about Galaxies. What is
Fantastic.
Galaxies? How it started? Your authentic story about it.
So we are a technology company from Brazil focused on predictive technologies. We developed something called synthetic personas.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to predict consumer behavior before it happens. It's mostly used to test marketing campaigns, product releases.
Okay.
So we sell to marketing and product development teams. And now we are in the process of expanding outside Brazil and Latam. That's also why we're here in the Web Summit, the event, with leads from the US, some countries in Europe, and also China.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great. That's quite the focus that you have to have, right? To go
Yeah.
from Brazil to different markets and
Yeah.
so on. You'll tell me about it. So Galaxy is about synthetic personas, and
Yes.
I heard that you are working with companies like Nestle, Spotify, so which are like really big names when
Yeah.
it comes to that. How have you managed to serve them? What are the challenges? And you'll tell me later about the challenges of expanding, but how is it to be working with companies like this?
Well, for us, we made a mission and a focus to work
Yeah.
with enterprise customers for us as a company, because for them, they usually have a budget or a size of marketing expenditure that it makes sense for them to have a solution which they can test,
Mm.
because either a 1% improvement means a lot of results, a lot of ROI back. And also, the solution is the best version of itself when you're leading with a consumer mass market, because either they have a lot of data that we can work with,
Yeah.
but also they have multiple personas.
Mhm.
So it makes sense to have synthetic personas of those personas so they can try out their products. I think for a startup, when you're starting out, it needs to be a priority or a focus, because you have to adapt a lot of your solution to work with this type of companies in terms of security, in terms of compliance, in terms of data privacy, and of course, in terms of just customer support.
Mm.
They are pretty, I would say, high touch. They really want to have you available to do calls, to do meetings. So I like to say that technology is only the first stepping stone.
Mhm.
Everything
Yeah.
else that comes after is super important.
Yeah.
So this is how we try to organize. And now, of course, when we think about new countries, you have the language barrier. But for us, it's also about data privacy rules, local data centers, local training of models. So you have some infrastructure complexity that you have to take up in mind once you decide to do this move.
Yeah, that's cool. When I was in Brazil, they said Brazil is not for amateurs.
It is
That's
not.
what they said to me because I was going to ask how do we move to Brazil, and they said first thing you need to know it's not for amateurs, right?
Yeah,
So
that's a good advice.
it is. Now you're going out from Brazil, you're going globally out, right?
Yeah.
Is that the biggest challenge that you're having? Because that's our topic for today. What is actually the biggest challenge? Because you are in a mission to expand globally.
Yes, this is a great question. I think I could have gone on for a few minutes, but if I had to think about one, I would say is talent, right? Because you can have the best idea in the entire planet, but if you don't have the team to execute it, it's worth nothing. And once you have, I think, your foot set on a country and maybe you start having a great team, but you need to expand. It's a completely new country. You don't know anyone. You don't know even where to look. But not only finding, but maintaining talent. Because, for
Maintaining.
example, in AI is a very competitive market. So you have companies that have a lot of money trying to poach your employees, offering them much more. So it's also how you can align the mission, purpose, other incentives that are not only financial in terms of personal development, but also, for example, stock option and other things for you to have the best team to execute on your mission and your plan.
Yeah.
But of course, in addition to that, I think you have to find the time to be always evolving and learning, because it's such a fast environment and fast pace that if you kind of funnel down only on the current day-to-day problems, the other companies can fly by you, right?
Exactly. You
So
have to be fast.
Yes, exactly. So this is very
Exactly.
challenging
Yeah.
to manage that and everything around that.
I remember when we spoke, you said to me it's balancing speed and trust,
Yeah.
right? And it stayed with me. Like, I'm like couldn't agree more, especially when you're working with companies that they know what they need and they need it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How have you found the ways to balance speed with trust? And now I'm asking from you as a company and your consumers, but then we'll talk about exactly the same when it comes to internally, right? Because
Yeah.
your team, as you mentioned it very well, and I cannot agree more, you guys, that actually culture, team, it's what really matters and it's a must. But tell me first about balancing speed and trust when it comes to you and your consumers.
There's also, as I mentioned, a great thing we have in mind because the good thing is when you're trying to make a difference in a new industry,
Mm.
speed is relative, right? For example, if you're dealing with a process, in our case, they used to take 1 year, 6 months, and we can do that in 1 month, it's super fast.
Mm.
But if you're trying to disrupt the process that takes a month, maybe you have to do it in a day.
Yeah.
So I think it's also relative. But
Yeah.
you have the speed of execution on the project or on for the clients, but also the average speed as you move as a company. I would say, for example, we cannot take 3 months in hiring. We need to do it faster. You cannot take, I don't know, 2 months to decide on pricing. You have to do it in a few weeks. So everything has this urgency that you have to impose. But also, the most important thing is trust on the other end, right? So you cannot be so fast that we will lose on quality execution, or even if you think internally. You have to be very mindful of not burning out your own
Yeah.
employees and
Yeah.
yourself
And
as a founder,
yourself,
of course,
exactly.
because you're running a marathon, right? It's
Yeah.
not like a 100-meter race. You're in this for a couple years, maybe a decade. So you have to plan in advance. But for us, I think one of the biggest advantage you have as an early stage company is speed, because you don't have layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy. So you would on average be able to do a move or to ship even a feature much faster than a big company, right? So I think when you're starting out, speed is one of the only advantage you have as a
Yes.
lean and smaller company. So I think you have to tap into that, lean into that as much as you can.
That's amazing. And I didn't ask you at the beginning, but why Galaxies? What is the meaning of the name? How did you come up with the name?
To be completely honest, I'm a very big fan of Star Wars
All
since I'm
right.
a kid. I have a Yoda tattoo,
All
Darth Vader
right.
tattoo, but I really like the subject or the concept of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
because I think you can explore in such large ways. And when I was thinking about the technology company, I said, if we are tapping into that subject, we could always use either visually or like naming products and that. But when we start to think a little bit more about synthetic personas and data, we think that each segment or product segment can be as a small galaxy. And then when
Exactly.
you have multiple product segments, you have multiple galaxies, which like the product is the star, then you have everything around it. But this is the bigger answer. The real one is that I just really always loved space in general because of Star Wars.
But you know why I ask you? Because I'm thinking galaxies, synthetic personas, data. It really resonates the same way as you explained it to me. Like each of your products can be a
Yeah,
specific
exactly.
galaxy. So, very catchy name. Congratulations
Fantastic.
on
Thank
that
you so
one.
much.
Tell me more now about see, because you are working in a space where there are a lot of regulations and different regulations in different markets as well,
Yeah.
like GDPR in Europe and so on. How is it different, and how is it that you deal with that? You mentioned also China, that you would like
Yeah.
to, go there and so on. Brazil. How is it different, and how do you manage that?
That is, I think, our biggest challenge now, because what we do in a nutshell is we use real consumer data to train machine learning algorithms, and then we use that to fine tune or do a lot of technique with LLMs, with AI. So we need consumer data, which is secured by mostly countries within GDPR. In Brazil,
Yeah.
we have LGPD, and each country has its own. But I think for us, the main thing is there are some denominators which are common. The type of data which is considered sensitive. So I think there are some good practices that you could export to other countries. But the main thing is a lot of this data need to be local. So if I collect data in that country, it needs to be contained within the country.
Mm.
And if I train a model or something like that as well. So it's a lot about what they call like Chinese wall or like containment building. But also, I think on the other end, when you think about this difficulties, is that now AI in general is a pretty new like macro environment, and we are like in a part of it, right? So the regulations are nascent. I think some countries have stricter regulations. In Europe, you'll find a little bit of that. Sometimes they want to regulate first, then they want to understand after. And some countries have a much more pro technology or business environment, right? So you have to learn how to navigate on that. And I think it's something that we learned as well. So the first step is to understand legal and local laws, which will be finding a law firm or law partner to help you to do that, because it
Mhm.
will save a lot of trouble
Yeah.
to building something. You need to throw it like away or change, right? So you don't have technical debt building up. So this is the thing that we learned the most. So now to these countries, we are looking for local partners that will help us land, but also to sell us. And our main way of being sold currently is indirect sales through market research companies. And why we focus on that as well is because they do a lot of data gathering
Yeah.
and they really know the local laws. So it's much easier for us to be only the technological layer and don't need to handle with everything, right? And also, the second problem is trust. Because you are a new company coming from this, I don't know where
Yeah.
country, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
wanted to work with big companies. So how can you prove that you're trustworthy? So having, for example, we are now going through certifications like ISO 247,000. This is something that really helps you, but being introduced by a warm partner, someone they already work with, somebody they trust, helps you to shorten the sales cycles, for example, from 4 months to less than a month. So this
Exactly.
is, I think, one of the biggest learning that we've had as well. Finding partnerships to enter new markets is a very good way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the only right way to
Yeah,
do it, honestly.
yeah.
And what about your team? How big is your team? Your internal team right
We are
now?
three founders, three
Okay.
co-founders, and we have 12 full-time employees. So
Full
it's a
time.
total of 15 people.
Okay.
And what we do is once if we have a big new demand or project, we do a horizontal scaling, right? So we hire, for example, part-time employees or like local partners to help us, for example, scale the infrastructure or to do something like that. But also we want to try to keep a lean team. I do one-on-ones with every employee every month. We are a fully remote company, so it's the only way we have to build and maintain this culture we were
Hmm.
discussing.
Yeah.
So for me, is one of the biggest drivers for us as a company is try to grow through processes and through technology. So there are several internal tools that we either develop, use, or integrate that we don't sell. For example, AI agents and scripts and some other technology that we have that we try to use that we can scale to serving more customers without needing to hire too much people, because this is the main thing we want to do, like having very very high end, very talented people and trying to be very competitive on paying, because it's a very competitive marketing environment we are inserted in. But I think this is the general idea. It's a mix of culture, processes, and technology. But trying to build a way that works for your company, right? Because it really, I don't think there's a silver bullet, one size fits all type of solution.
True.
Because if you're dealing with I don't know, more in-person hardware like factory, maybe you will need more people from the beginning. But this is the way we realized that we could build and we could scale while maintaining the way of working. I would say that we
Yeah.
tried to create in Galaxies
Yeah.
from the founders. This is what we
Founders.
do.
Yeah. I can relate to that. It's for every startup is very important. We call it the DNA.
Yeah,
The DNA that you had at the beginning, drag it with you, and at some point becomes an intentional strategy
yeah,
actually of the company. So how do you see that changing when you go to other markets, right? Because again, I will connect it to my experience in Brazil. They said to me, if you want to go to Brazil, you have to tropicalize. They said that to me. Like, you have to learn how the locals work. You have to
yes,
talk the way they talk.
yeah.
They said you need to smile more. the
We are
like,
very warm people.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
we want to do business with foods and sometimes drinking. That's really,
And how will you go to Europe and how do you go to the other markets where you want? With localizing yourself, is it like you will we talked about the partnerships and
yeah.
so on, but are they going to bring the culture, or you will need to hire local people in those countries to actually learn how to work with those people?
Yeah, I think hiring people locally is mandatory if you are serious about
Yeah, if you're
landing and
serious.
expanding in a
Yeah.
country. But the thing we try to do first is understanding, asking a lot of questions. For some countries that we started to explore, we found companies that did like lending programs in which they do like cultural acclimation, literally
Soft
tell you
landing.
like, for example,
Yeah.
don't stand your hands, don't
Yeah.
shake, don't like the basics, right? But I think, yeah, in my opinion, is the mission of the founders to do this, because you have to look at the landscape and think, how can we, with what we believe and who we are as a company, fit into this market? Then you have to build, I would say, the path or the roadmap. But it's mandatory for you to have a local person at some point, because either, if imagine if you're dealing with people locally and you're not even serious enough to have a national hired in your team,
Yes.
like I
Yeah.
really
True.
serious about landing in
True.
my country. So I think that means a lot.
Yeah.
And I think also there are a lot of elements in business that are not related to language. It's culture, right?
It's
It's the
culture.
way you express an idea, is the way you sell, and that's very hard to learn. I don't know, in months, right? Maybe in years living in a country you can adapt. So I think, in my opinion, this combination of local partnerships, but also local people that you hire, is the best way to move forward. And when I look about some success stories that I studied in the past years, like company that scaled globally and they did it fast, this is the playbook, right?
Yeah.
So this is the way we're trying to aim as a company to do as well.
Love that. Love that. And I completely agree with you. We've been in some similar situation with native teams. So that's the formula you need to follow. Love
Fantastic.
it. Two more questions for you. The
Let's
first
do
one:
it.
if time and money are not an issue, which country would you expand to next?
Wow, that is a very good question. But I think we we are very interested about the MENA region.
Hmm.
We went on some trips there as well, and we find that the market is growing tremendously, and it looks a little bit like Silicon Valley in the early 2000s. Also, we come from Brazil and Latin America, which is not a very traditional space in terms of like leading tech. But the kind of the strategy we would do and we are trying to do is, how can we expand to these other geographies that are also bigger populations, a lot of diversity, and maybe it's still a little bit underserved in terms of technology,
Yeah.
in which we could have a leverage or advantage, because we did some testing, and the fact that technology is working very well in Brazil, it's a very positive indicator that could work very well in other countries like UAE, now China, for
Yeah.
example, the southeast of Asia. So this is the main core strategy. But also, I think at some point, as a company, if you want to have a certain type of trajectory, if you want to aim or dream of having, I don't know, an IPO, you have to be serious about eventually being in the United States and also some countries in Europe. I think the fact you have European Union is a little bit easier because you can have a local company and operate in multiple countries, but each country, as we were mentioning, it's pretty different. You cannot do business the same way in Spain and in Portugal, right? But also, I think the idea is that even if we had all the money, doing in an intentional manner, in which we don't lose ourselves in the culture in the process. So step by step, we are in a place now that we are, I would say we have around 70% market share in our industry in Brazil, but we want to aim higher because it's a very new industry, synthetic user research type of technology. So this is the core idea. And then when we think about expanding, how to do in a manner that we don't lose focus or speed and trust in our
Yes.
main markets,
Yes.
but we can do in a way that we have a very good unique value proposition or advantage to offer in this new market we are trying to be placed. So
Yeah.
this is kind of the focus we're trying to do.
Amazing. And I wish you a lot of success with that. Last question. If you have to choose three words, what is the key to scaling successfully?
Culture, first one. I'm feeling that a lot in my scheme. The second one is focus or priority, I would say. And the third one would be also team.
Team.
I cannot escape from that. It's very um, humbling, I think, as you are facing some of those pains, of those growing pains, and some of the wisdom, general wisdom, proves to be true, right?
Yeah.
And I have a mentor. I've been working with him now for a couple of months, and I'm trying to learn what is the true job of a CEO, right? And the thing has been discussing with me. He has over 30 years of expertise being CEO of multiple multinational companies. Is that you have to set the culture, the mission, and you have to find and maintain the right people, because kind of after that everything else will follow, right? So for me, those are the three words that will make basically uh, the main important things for me. And focus is everything, as I was discussing, right? Because if you focus too early, you're wrong. If you focus too late, you're wrong as
Yeah.
well. And if you have multiple priorities, nothing is a priority. So this
Yeah.
is the I think one of the biggest struggles as you face as a founder. I love a quote from Steve Jobs that he says, turning down a bad idea is easy. Focus is saying no to a very good idea. And this is something that really stuck with me as well, because I think when you start now, for example, in this event, a lot of new things, opportunities, and deciding not to chase something is the hardest thing you can do. But also, I think, in my opinion, one of the more important
Yeah.
things you can do.
I love it. Love it, you guys. If I have to choose one thing that stay with me in this conversation, there are many phrases that you said, many phrases, but at the beginning you said something very meaningful, which is an idea will stay just an idea if you don't have the right team beside you. And I totally agree with you. Like your idea is an idea, but the team is what makes it a
Yeah.
business and a successful story. So Daniel, thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much.
Again, thanks for the time, and I wish all of the success to the
For you
Galaxies.
guys, the same. Thank you, everybody, for your time as well.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Go global, not nuts.